All right. So, guys, what I wanted to kind of discuss on this call was the effects of 2020, and really, I guess the way I wanted to frame the question was, what do you guys think people should have learned in 2020? So, obviously, what you learned will play in, but what do you think people as a whole should have learned this year?
It's a good one. So this is kind of random, but I think I forgot what the quote was, but I saw a quote in the beginning of the year, and it basically said, if you don't do something with this time that we have now, you don't have a problem with time. You're just lazy.
Yeah.
So that kind of hit home to me, and I realized I'm going to have the next couple of months off. Who knows how long? I got to do something productive with it. So that was a big takeaway for me. I learned that I didn't have a problem with time. I was just lazy, and that there's always enough time in the day.
So then, do you think that people should have learned to really capitalize on the time that they have, and utilizing, let's say, when we are locked down or we don't have as much social interaction, how to basically benefit
For
with the
sure.
extra time?
For sure. Not even in a random situation like we had this year. I think just in general, it's a lot of times, I'm guilty of making excuses as far as, why I can't do certain things.
Yeah.
So this was just a good learning lesson for me.
Okay.
That's
Madison, what about you?
Yeah, that's really fascinating because I kind of had an opposite reaction. Um, and I think that's great that we've all kind of experienced it differently this year. But I'm more on the edge of like overworking myself, being a little too productive, expecting too much from myself. So this forced time off actually gave me a new perspective as far as um, letting myself slow down and not feel penalized for it or feel like I'm having to play catch up or anything like that. Uh, and I think in general, that's really helped a lot of people that may have not made time for their family or their friends or their loved ones. In general, I've talked to a lot of friends like that they're like, wow, this is the first time I've actually had a sit down conversation with my dad in years, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And like, wow, like we are kind of on this like phones here, computers, we're constantly connected. So we're constantly expecting the utmost productivity from ourselves. And I'm definitely guilty of it. And so this year, when I got to actually take time off, forced time off, and still work, of course, but time to spend with my family that I don't always see, or time to actually schedule Zoom calls with friends that are out of state that I don't see, it really put a lot into perspective for me as far as putting relationships at the same level as my career, at least moving
That's
forward.
awesome. Yeah.
Awesome.
Jen?
Oh, so for me, like from a human perspective, what I wish that people would have learned would have been just empathy. I think that I was disappointed in just the lack of human compassion. So many people had differing opinions about what happened in 2020. It just brought out a lot of strange things in people, I think, whether that be rebellion. Let's just say that, maybe you never like took 15 trips and then this year you couldn't take it and you're like, no, I'm going on these 15 trips, even though we're going, through a pandemic. So I think I would have just loved to see just human compassion for one another, empathy for what others are going through. There was a lot of loss this year, I think, and that's something to take really seriously. I mean, a lot of people lost multiple family members and that kind of thing. Something that I've really been stressing with my daughter this entire time is to treat others how you want to be treated, right? And so, I mean, it's a golden rule, but I would have just loved to see that. And I think, you did see it in pockets. For a long time, people were cheering on the heroes in capes, or not all heroes wear capes. Is what I'm trying to say. Our frontline workers is what I mean. And I just wish that would have kind of just been captured, just in full force throughout the year. I think people just got sick and tired of hearing about the pandemic and that kind of thing. For me, just like she said, slowing down, humility. Oh my gosh, like what a humbling experience. So I moved from Nashville on February 18th, I think I arrived in Vegas, and the world shut down like less than a month later. I started a brand new job and I was furloughed. April 3rd. So I started February the 24th and I was furloughed April 3rd. And I had like 0 options. I mean, the entire city of Las Vegas completely shut down. I know Brian can kind of attest to just the way Las Vegas has changed as a city in general. Our crime rate has increased. So yeah, it was a very humbling year. You know, you realize what you can live without, what you can't live without. Those were some huge takeaways for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think to echo what everyone said actually is that I wrote down a few things. One was COVID and its effects. And obviously to me, the effects, the theme that you guys all brought up was people. And obviously I put down stocks, unemployment, and income inequality, because I think with the financial system and the economy, how that's affected people and their outlook and what they should be doing. And then I wrote down George Floyd and like the whole kind of movement around politics and racism and all these social things, which again, factors in how people feel. And I think that this theme that we're all talking about is, you know, really revolves around the idea of like, we've really had to kind of sit in this, you know, moment of like, well, what really matters? Because we think that money and job title and, you know, status and having fun really matters. But then we realize, well, all of those things are only conduits to basically make your life better, but that's only made better by people, you know? So I've been on this journey for a couple of years now saying, look, you know, you can have all the money in the world, but if you go travel somewhere and you don't have good people to share with, it's not as fun. Like you can have fun, it just won't be as fun. You know, you can go out with friends and you can, you know, improve in your job, but if you don't have good relationships and people who are supporting you, so when you come home and, you know, you got that raise or you had a shitty day at work or what, or you had the best day ever, like someone to come home to or a friend to share it with, or on the weekend when you're going out for dinner, just those human interactions. So I think we've either all neglected those in some ways, we've, you know, misplaced the importance of them. And I think the themes and everything I've talked about too is even not just the death, because we know that that's a big thing, but the idea that even when people are just struggling, how that affects them. So one of the next big things I really want to get into in maybe another episode or at some other time is really like the mental health crisis around how people are feeling and dealing with these things, because it's such a, I think there's such a stigma around how you feel when it comes to your past relationships or your personal well-being. But we're all human beings, we're all going through this. So I think this theme of people, you know, and really valuing that is what I think that people should have learned. And I think I definitely, you know, furthered my learning of it. That, you know, when you're sitting alone, you know, watching TV, or you can't go out to that bar or restaurant that you want to, it matters. It matters, that human connection. And to, you know, I mean, Madison's point is like, I've had more FaceTime conversations and Zoom conversations than I've ever had in my life. And there is something nice about seeing someone's face and seeing them react and not just either texting or being on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I definitely echo everything everyone's saying.
Yeah. I think it's interesting that you brought up the whole George Floyd movement as well, because I feel like this has been kind of a loss of innocence, right? In a really beneficial way. And people can't act like they are unaware anymore. And I think that's been one of like the most beautiful awakenings, even though it came from a lot of misery and just hopelessness. I think it's one thing that has been really exciting. You can't talk to family members and just be like, oh gosh, like they're not aware. You know, it's like, it's in your face. It should be, we all need to make a change. And I think that's one thing that's been really exciting to witness as a person that was born and raised in California in a very progressive family and a very progressive, you know, community, to kind of see the different parts of the U.S. and the world recognize this systemic issue that we have, and kind of talk about that.
Yeah.
Tangent, sorry, but I just
no, it's super relevant, because I mean, you know, it's funny, like I don't follow a lot of like mainstream news, and I'm not really on social media, and so it's funny, this whole pandemic, when these, you know, things would happen on the news, I would hear about them like 2 and 3 days later. So I'd be at a friend's house, like even George Floyd, I heard about maybe 3 or 4 days after it happened, and I'm at a friend's house, and you know, you kind of get numb to just like every day you see something, so you're like, oh yeah, sure, someone got killed again, okay, whatever. But I remember actually watching it, and even for me, looking at it, I'm like, wow, that's different. Like that's murder. You know, that it was a very visceral thing. And so, you know, when you see so many things and so many stories that you do get numb to them. But I think when we've had time to just sit in it and absorb, and I think we've had more time to do that than ever. So I think your point's super well taken.
Yeah, and reflect really. I know I've had more conversations about race and gender inequality and things like that this year. And again, this is something that me and my friends would talk about a lot because it's palpable and it's something we all
Yeah.
have experienced, but more than ever. And it's obviously upsetting, but so exciting at the same time that it's actually on people's plates moving forward.
Yeah, hopefully progressing, right? Yeah.
We've definitely seen the best and the worst of people and humanity and the country this year.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
reflecting on Jen's lack of empathy, right? You saw the people that were stepping up and actually being affected by these videos or these numbers that we were receiving from COVID, and the people that were blindly, ignorant or ignoring it. And it's really interesting. I had a conversation with my friends recently about how are we going to move forward from this now, seeing your friends on social media or talking with them, and if they were really obtuse to
Yeah.
a lot of these subjects, how do you move forward with a friendship when you're like, you can't just act like this is not happening, both with COVID and the civil unrest.
Yeah.
This has been The Invested Life with Adam Khalil. Subscribe, like, comment, but most importantly, share the information you learned and share the video with a friend or someone who you think might find value from it.